vengeance shall be mine.
Okay, let's just go ahead and... Oh. Hello, everybody. My name is BananaMannzz, and welcome to Highlander Heart of the Swarm. Just like last time, there are a couple rules, and we'll go through them. I can only attack with one of each unit, and I can only defend my base with one of each unit. That means going out to do objectives, going out to capture points, or to fight swarms of enemies throughout the map, I can only use one of each. But depending on if my base has ramps or choke points, I can have multiple groups of defensive units protecting each individual choke point. I can build up reserves in case I need to replace them on the fly, but they're just going to sit at the back of my base. I'm allowed to use allies and whatever they do, along with summoned units, like spawn banelings, though I don't use that throughout the challenge. I just use something like spawn Leviathan instead. And I gotta play on brutal whenever possible, so I'll let you know when I'm not playing on brutal, but for most of the missions, it was on brutal difficulty, which really sucked, but here we go. Starting off with the first mission, we run into the crux of even attempting this run. Zerg, by their very nature, are designed to be swarmy and overrun their opponents. That means attacking the entire map with nothing but a drone and a Zergling is going to take forever. Not only that, but the game loves to give you random troops at the start of the mission, as well as a stream of rescuable units at different points of the map. These are the summoned units I was talking about, and I'm allowed to use them if I'm going headfirst into siege tanks and bunkers that can't be broken by a single Zergling. I'll point out the times I decide to spare my sanity for a boost to my success rate, but let it be known that even getting to the point to gain extra units takes going through the mission without them to begin with. On Labrat specifically, Heart of the Swarm loves to add a lot of extra turrets and units, all that have better upgrades, on top of the hidden stat debuff throughout the campaign that forces my characters and units to take 25% extra damage. So, I very slowly move through the map towards the Eradicator. To get the most damage in each group, I'd lure a single robot away, then let my drone tank while my Zergling got in as much DPS as possible, usually around 3 hits, maybe 4 if I'm lucky. This worked sometimes, but other times the AI would decide to target the weaker Zergling and leave my drone to attack. But thankfully, after mining out every mineral node, a common theme we will see throughout this game, I got the Eradicator. Back in the Saddle is a hero mission, so we can skip that one. But Rendezvous, Kerrigan barely makes this mission possible. Having 2 chokes to hold meant I could have an active group to attack the map and 2 groups to defend, but even with the extra Zerg, I had to memorize when the Dominion would move out and with what, so I could use Kerrigan to stun them. This is the first mission I decided to use the Summon Zerg to save my base and go for the kill. It wasn't enough. My entire army was wiped out just as it got to the pulse cannon, with Naktul being obliterated the moment she spawned in, with Kerrigan to follow shortly after. Kerrigan died again when I missed a transfuse, but after cleaning both Thors up, I managed to attack the objective and win. For my Zergling mutation, I went for Adrenal Overload, meaning I get some pretty good damage. However, the Zergling being as weak as it is, I usually use the little guy out on the map. Next on Kaldir, I get the Roach with Harvest of Screams. This mission was only possible thanks to my ability to make further choke points with hatcheries and evo chambers. Simply put, it's impossible to kill a single Archon with a Zergling, a Queen, and a Roach, and there are often 2 to 3 Archons. Follow that up with Charge Lots, Stalkers, and eventually Immortals, and this mission felt like it was directly taunting me with its namesake. Regardless, the flash freezes meant I could send out my attack guys unfettered by the pesky Protoss, and after a crisp hour and a half, not including restarts, I finished the mission. I decided to take Chain Reaction for a bit of AoE, and took Adaptive Plating for the Roach so I could have at least one somewhat tanky frontline unit. With Shoot the Messenger, there's no way I could do this on Brutal or even Hard. Even if I had a choke point, that means I get 2 Spores, 2 Queens, 2 Hydras, and Kerrigan against 3/3 Sky Toss. After about 2 hours of attempts, I went down to normal and bit the bullet, making sure to grab all 3 stasis chambers for Kerrigan levels. Enemy Within was so painful that OBS decided to lose most of the footage. Here's a good summary of the hell I had to go through. By the way, this is toned back down to normal. Okay, well, the nightmares continue with Domination. Both my natural and main were constantly flooded with +2 Lings and Banes, and there's not really much I could do to stop them. So at some point I decided I'd sacrifice my base in an attempt to speedrun and collect the last 15 eggs. After about an hour, I found the best strategy was to rush the middle Infested CC, which had just the right amount for me to beat Zagara. After about an hour and a half of fiddling with saves in different positions, I managed to create a choke right at the entrance of Zagara's base. I had just enough forces to hold the incoming attacks, but there was no point where I could deal with mutas and ultras. So I decided to roll the boys in and see what kind of damage they can do, and it wasn't enough. But after reloading and attacking with everything at once, I managed to get a foothold with my attacking forces, which almost got annihilated by this surprise ultra. Regardless, I cleaned out the base and moved on to the Evo missions. Now, clearing out the cracks was surprisingly easy, as in a 1v1 the Zerg always won. And at first, I decided to use the summoned Zerglings that Abathur gives to get the second part of this mission. You might see this as too much, but let me calm the commenters by reminding everyone that the second Zergling strain is Swarmlings. The second half of the mission requires that you build a large army to overwhelm the Dominion base. Given that this run is the complete antithesis to that, it's literally impossible to complete the second half of the Zergling Evo mission. Additionally, all other Evo missions are locked behind this one, so I guess this run becomes a can you beat StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm with one of each unit and without evolution missions. Fun. Fire in the Sky took some real memorization of the attack waves, making sure Kerrigan was in the perfect spot to react to dangerous drops. Thankfully, I could deal with most of them before the medevacs even dropped their units, but it required being in the right time to intervene. Old Soldiers was tough for the same reason as Fire in the Sky, but thankfully, this time I could get an extra base. I decided to go through the first part of the mission as normal, but breaking through the Terran defenses was going to take a large amount of time even with that benefit. Not only are planetaries defended by siege tanks tough to crack, but the Warhound unit does 25 damage per shot, and there are typically 4 to 6 Warhounds in each attack wave. That means my highest HP unit, the Aberration, gets absolutely annihilated in maybe 4 seconds. Thankfully, between missions I took the Wild Mutation ability for Kerrigan, which gives 200 temp HP and 100% increased attack speed to my elite army of little Zerg warriors. I basically had this for the entirety of the run, since I deemed it better than spawn Banelings for the spirit of the run. So, I slowly went up more chokes before sending in my forces to focus down on the objective, waiting to rebuild my forces, and getting ready to sacrifice them all over again. With the Aberration adding some beefiness to my front line, I felt comfortable with the first mission of Xeris. Honestly, this mission wasn't too bad with 2 choke points at my main base and a natural. I could defend my base with confidence while blitzing the objective. Wild Mutation and Kinetic Blast meant I could wipe out a dangerous target and buff my forces for the rest of the engagement. On the final engagement, Bragg was surprisingly easy to take out as long as I used my blasts to put him in check, and Wild Mutation meant my 2 aberrations tanked over 800 damage. Unfortunately, I think I lost most of the footage for the Crucible, but I don't remember it being too difficult once I dropped down to normal. The biggest thing was numbers in the early sections before I could complete a wall with Evo Chambers, and with 3 chokes close together I could use my active group to cycle between the sections that needed the most help while using the rest of my resources to simply build more walls. We can skip Supreme since it's a hero mission with OP Kerrigan, which means we go to Infested. Infested felt more annoying than anything. I cleared most of the map with Kerrigan alone, but with this mission we get the MVP of Heart of the Swarm Highlander, the Infester. The entire problem with having an elite force of squishy bugs is now overshadowed by the amazing ability to suddenly have Thors, BCs, and siege tanks. This massive upgrade made it barely possible to recuperate losses after each Dominion attack. For reference, I lost about 20 virophages, but that wasn't even the major issue. Trying to break the defensive line took over an hour, which means by the end of the mission, just before I managed to stop the attack waves from coming in, a fully upgraded mech army was coming to destroy me every single wave. I mean, just look at this! There's no way I can engage the enemy in an actual fight without being on the brink of a reset every single time. To be honest though, I think that was as exciting as it was stressful, and maybe my favorite part of the challenge. By this point, I had managed to collect 46 Kerrigan levels and felt pretty comfortable with my setup. I never really used Malignant Creep when playing this game in the past, but it really made up the difference with my future fights. Having 30% extra attack speed and the regeneration was a wonderful way to ensure my troops could stay alive, especially once I had taken Wild Mutation over Mend. Hand of Darkness is next, and the hybrid mean business. The extra upgrades and damage taken on Brutal make it nearly impossible to kill a hybrid without getting obliterated by the Dominion, so I had to move back down from Brutal. You'd think the Brutalist would help even the odds, but its slow and janky attack speed means that it's not really going to do much damage, and there aren't enough units to take advantage of the Brutalist's tanking capabilities. Regardless, an infested Thor and Siege tank carried this mission, even though I almost got completely destroyed by the 2 hybrid at the end. Finally, we get the Ultralisk, and even it can't fully carry the team on Brutal difficulty. Its massive 500 HP with Queen healing and creep regeneration means nothing if the hybrids start with +3 attack and charge slots go for my squishy damage dealers. So, I dropped to normal and used Stukov to blast all the Protoss in sight. I'm realizing while editing that the objectives gave high ground vision, which is more impactful than I noticed at first. If I didn't have high ground, I couldn't snipe the photon cannons or immortals with Stukov, so it made every objective a lot easier than it could have been. The Hyperion mission has no impact on the challenge, so we move on to Conviction. The start of the mission felt pretty okay, with my Infestor and Kerrigan carrying the team, but then comes a segment where you don't have Kerrigan. This segment took a little bit of memorization and some micro to get enough energy from the Infestor, but it was all good with the help of the classic Infested tank and Thor. Then, the ship is set to self-destruct, and I don't know how possible the last segment is. I tried dashing around with Kerrigan, I tried using my army as a distraction, but any other method seemed impossible with the limited amount of tanking power my units actually have versus 2 bunkers and siege tanks, all while under a time limit. So, I decided I'd leave this for someone that's more of a tryhard than myself, and rolled through this with 2 Thors in my swarm. Next is Planetfall, and I get to use the Leviathan to full effect in order to destroy the horrifying attack waves. The real ability that saves me is its massive AoE stun that allows me to focus on any threat. Additionally, thanks to my ability to rely on Kerrigan this time, I swapped out Wild Mutation because it doesn't affect the Leviathan, and went for Men. Even with this, the Leviathan ability comes off cooldown about every 3 minutes, meaning I need to hold back attack waves and make sure I can slowly chunk away at the Terran defenses in the meantime. I also allowed the use of allies in order to provide a little bit of pressure, but they really didn't do anything when it came to actually defending my base or applying any real threat. With the second to last mission underway, it's painfully clear how slow these missions feel when all I have is Dahaka, Kerrigan, and the occasional Leviathan. Truth be told, the Infestor helped with defense, but I couldn't risk losing my BCs to random attack waves, and I didn't want to worry about mismicroing. So, after a very long hour, I managed to clean the Planetary Fortress, after Bunker, after Siege Tank, after Thor, and I was on my way to the last mission. The Reckoning was awful. After barely making a dent in the defenses for over 45 minutes, every single attack wave has the finest upgrades, units, and micro to completely obliterate my puny force. This is where, for the second time, to spare my sanity, I pretty much resigned any real chance of a Highlander run. Simply put, even if I had access to one of every high-end unit the Dominion sends, each attack wave of theirs sends at least 3, meaning I can't compete. The entrenched positions have no effect on the objective, and neither does Jim. So, in order to feel some sense of accomplishment and finish the run that I was given, I spent almost 2 hours grinding away with Mass Shock Division tanks, Prides of Augustgrad, and Black Hammer Thors in order to secure a spot to shell the objective from far enough away. After swarming the planetary, getting destroyed by the mercs that dropped from the sky, and finally breaking the wall, I beat part of the swarm's last mission. And there we have it. After 3 months of playing the challenge on and off, I'd like to say I enjoyed Wings of Liberty a lot more. It was just harder to get anything done, and it felt a lot more punishing if I wasn't in the exact spot I needed to be. That all being said, I did enjoy this challenge, and I'm very excited for Legacy of the Void. I'm hoping that it'll be a lot more fun before moving on to Warcraft 3. Thank you so much. It's been amazing seeing the channel grow, and I'll see you around.